Thank you very much. It's a great welcome. Brand safety may not be the sexiest thing that you hear about amidst all the robotics and the machine learning, but the reason why there are at least 2 brand safety events, and I'm following a talk on programmatic brand safety, is that it's maybe the most important thing that you'll hear in this conference. Because if we can't fix the quality in the digital supply chain, it's going to undermine the confidence of users and advertisers, and that'll mean lost opportunity. And for you in the audience, that means lost revenue. So I'm going to talk for the next 20 minutes or so about the importance of brand safety and some of the background in brand safety, but also how we're using AI to help us with brand safety and to make the digital supply chain a better quality experience. So I work for GroupM. GroupM is the largest media investment company in the world. We place about a third of all the world's media. We work for clients like Unilever, Shell, BP, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, some fantastic brands. And before they pay for a digital impression, we define a digital impression, a quality digital impression, as follows. There should be 4 things. We want the ad to be seen by a real human who's in our target audience, in a safe environment. That means brand safe, yes, but there are 4 things there. One is it needs to be viewable. Second, free of invalid traffic. The third thing is in the demographic target audience that we've chosen. And the fourth is in an appropriate contextual environment. In other words, a brand safe environment. But brand safety to us doesn't just mean the contextual environment. When we talk about brand safety, we mean any risk that a brand might face in the digital supply chain. So there are 3 types of risk: financial risk, reputational risk, and legal risk. Financial risk is something like viewability or invalid traffic or ad fraud. It means that if those things occur on a client schedule, they'll lose money. Reputational risk is what clients probably worry about most, which is the brand safety element of it. They don't want their ads adjacent to any harmful content. And then legal risk is something like GDPR or IP infringement, where they could get in trouble with the laws of the country if they do so. I want to talk about 2 of these because we have a short amount of time, but it's also where we're applying AI to help us at the moment. And that is an ad fraud, or what we call sophisticated invalid traffic. And the second one that we'll talk about is content environment or contextual brand safety. But before we do that, let's just talk about the importance of brand safety for a minute for marketers. In 2017, when brand safety practices really took off, clients said that it was one of the most important things when they were researched, one of the most important things that they had. But at the beginning of 2019, if you have a look at that slide in the middle, it continues to be a growing concern for advertisers or marketers as part of the WFA, the World Federation of Advertising. But it's becoming a bigger problem. So therefore, it's something we really need to focus on fixing. And it's not just a problem for marketers, by the way. Consumers are beset by fake news, news of data privacy. There are hacks and breaches, data usage costs, malware injected onto their phones, as you probably read yesterday in terms of WhatsApp, device latency, device degradation, too much ad clutter, and illegal content on their phones, people selling illegal drugs and even guns on the internet. And so this is leading to things like ad blocking. There's still between 25 and 40% of people now actively use an ad blocker. So those of you who make your living from advertising, that's a pretty scary number. But there are also data opt-outs, and with the new IPT from Safari and from Chrome, there'll be, we're talking about the end of the cookie. So there's increasing data opt-outs. But also people are starting to buy their content through subscription, and so they're opting out of advertising. And then there's active ad avoidance across digital, but also in television. And research shows that their confidence is at an all-time low. Consumers' confidence, users' confidence is at an all-time low. So unless we want to be advertising to older people and poorer people in the future, we really have to fix this. So one of the things that we started off with in 2018, this is just a short history, is the first thing you have to do in brand safety is you have to measure it. What is the level of fraud? What is the level of harmful content? What is the level of IP infringement? You set a benchmark. Let's say fraud is at 10%. You say next year we want it to be 5%, and then you optimize to that benchmark. What I mean by optimize is you use the publisher partners that deliver the best quality inventory for you. Now that's how we started in brand safety in 2017 and 2018. But this year, the conversation's changed. It's become much more nuanced. We're talking about overall inventory quality and digital accountability. What is the ROI through digital? Exactly. And what is supply chain transparency? And how can we use blockchain to make sure that every intermediary in the process is delivering value? How do we protect consumers' data and their security? What is my risk tolerance if I want to be completely safe? What is the price of being that? I'll show you an interesting slide about that later. And then also, not just safety, but what about suitability? The ad might be in a safe position, but is it suitable for my high-end brand? And then an important area that we didn't see last year, which is about social responsibility. It's not just about brand safety, but it's about the safety of the channel, the safety of users. Do I want to be, as an advertiser, do I want to be on a channel that can't stop harmful content, like the New Zealand shooting, or like child endangerment? And will my consumers or will my users start criticizing me for supporting a channel that can't control that harmful content? So it's a different kind of conversation. But what's become evident is that we're moving to a stage where if you buy brand safe content, in other words, if it's viewable, if there's low IBT, low ad fraud, if there's a high degree of overall brand safety and contextual brand safety, we find that advertising actually works better. So that's why it's not just limiting risk in brand safety, but we're pushing for brand safety because it helps our clients sell better. Because ultimately, if you think about the logic of it, if an ad can be seen and if there are fewer bots on it, it will ultimately be selling better. So that's brand safety, and that's why it's so important for our environment. And I said I would talk about how AI is helping us in two of these areas. One of them is fraud, or what we call sophisticated invalid traffic, and there's the definition. It's really impressions that are intentionally deceptive and designed to manipulate legitimate ad serving, or to make fictitious activity that leads to inflated counts. And it's a big business. I'll talk about the size of the business in a meantime. And what's important to realize here that ad fraud isn't just a financial risk to advertisers. In most countries, it's a crime. We absolutely have to get rid of it. And so those of you who are in advertising technology or in advertising, we really have to stamp this out in every single country. My job is a global job. I do a lot of work in China and in Asia Pacific, where ad fraud is still an issue. And those of you who are not familiar with ad fraud, let me give you a kind of a 101 lesson. Ad fraud is mainly, the part of ad fraud that is the most malicious for us is created primarily by bots. And if you're not familiar with how a bot network might work, is that I might set up a sports entertainment site called johnsports.com. What I would do is buy a domain, create a website, steal some content from other sports sites so it looks legitimate if everybody goes to johnsports.com. I would integrate myself into the overall ecosystem and register my website so it looks legitimate. Then I would create a botnet, which is actually not that difficult to do. This is the bad news, is this process isn't that hard to do. And it's very profitable. But I would create a botnet by buying an advertising list, for instance, or an email list for 1 million or 2 million young males. And I would send an email to them saying, hi, my name is Candy. Click here if you're lonely. And believe it or not, there will be thousands and thousands of stupid, lonely men who will actually go and click on that. And I'll have and we'll be able to inject malware on their computers who will click like crazy on those websites that we've created, on those fraudulent websites we've created. We'll then send those bots to the buy side, the advertising business, and associated sites, and we will start earning a lot of money on fraudulent clicks, because the advertising industry will think that people are clicking like crazy on a botnet. And by the way, this business is worth somewhere between $3 and $8 billion, depending on who you believe. So it's big business, and there are a lot of people making some good money with that. The good news is, though, that if you use technology, and not just AI, because this first slide that I'll show you is more about rules-based, but if you use technology, you can limit that almost to zero. This is an example of using mostly rules-based, creating whitelists and blacklists. In other words, we have a list of, hundreds of thousands of sites, of bot sites and URLs that we have to avoid. And we keep them on there, but we also have a list of the good guys, and we make sure that we have white lists of the good guys. But there are avoidance categories. That, for instance, adult content or controversial news categories that we can stay away from, that our partners offer us the opportunity to filter, URL keyword blocking, and there are also brand-specific avoidance categories if you're an aircraft company and you want to stay away from air crashes. But it gets more sophisticated than that, and this is where we can go down to page-level analysis for precision and accuracy. So we can read the URL of the content that we're about to serve an ad against. This is all done pre-bid, by the way, so this is in between the time of somebody clicking on a piece of content and opening the content. We can read the URL, we can look at the inbound and outbound links, we can actually do the semantic analysis, which is actually reading the copy on the website. And not only reading the copy on the website, but we can look at the metadata behind that website. And those things in combination enable the technology through the verification companies. We enable that technology to learn what's suitable and what's not suitable for our brand. And then based on that, and that decision, in that microsecond that all happens, we can decide whether to serve the ad or not serve the ad. And we believe that we're collecting around about 99.9% of all of the invalid traffic. The same thing works in mobile, by the way, is that it'll see the name of the app, the category, the store rating, the description, what's new in the app, and it will also decide whether or not to serve that ad before. As long as we can use an identifier or a JavaScript tag, we can limit the amount of fraudulent activity or harmful activity that we serve against using this kind of artificial intelligence. So that's really the good news. And what's happened in the US, at least over the last year or year and a half, the incidence of invalid traffic has gone down by about 78%. In fact, I'm proud to say that in GroupM it's gone down by 90%, but over the industry it's gone down by 78%. So AI is definitely working to help us limit fraud. The second area I said we would talk about, so we said we would talk about invalid traffic, but also contextual brand safety. And this is where clients are very worried because this is their reputational damage. It may affect how users feel about them and feel about their brands, and also maybe even their share price. So this is where we're worried about ads being placed adjacent to or even on content. And this happens mainly in social networking. Why? Because social networking is largely user-generated content, so the user sends the content. And it's done at a stupefying volume. I think that you probably know these statistics, but there are 400 hours of new content uploaded to YouTube every minute. Just get your head around that. 1.4 billion new pieces of content on Facebook every single day. There's no way that human beings can monitor that kind of content. So it's how else but using machine learning and AI can we try and avoid the advertising, the kind of content on the screen like the sales of opioids and steroids and guns and child endangerment and hate speech. So all of which can create a huge harm to society. And so what we do here is and obviously have to use AI. And here's a sort of a progression. This, firstly, semantic analysis. This is probably the first and most simplistic level, is that the AI will read what's in the text and see if there are any words, and it will learn the semantic meaning of what's in there. And that'll help us avoid either hate speech, but also, if we're an energy company, we'll avoid things like an oil spill. So it's relatively simple, but it works well. The second level would be an audio analysis. So we would look at semantic, but we would look at audio as well. And not only listening to what the soundtrack is, so it's also very useful in video, but also reading the closed captioning that's on much of the content on social networking. And it'll also be able to see whether or not it's suitable. The third level is interesting because it's sentiment analysis. Now this is where the AI is learning what's positive or what's negative based on what it's seen before. And so this is useful in political advertising, but it's also useful in brand sentiment, because I only want to be around, for this particular brand, say, I only want to be around content that has a positive sentiment. And then image recognition, which you will be very familiar with, but it's absolutely extremely important for what we do, because this is what allows us to identify individual images that may in fact be harmful. And image recognition's been there for, I think, decades, but it's starting to get better in a way where beyond facial recognition, it can recognize a thing like an ISIS flag or a gun or a scene that they know is common to hateful content. And whilst it's good, it's not good enough. It's missing things like the New Zealand shooting, which, as you know, was viewed thousands of times before it was taken down. And small manipulations fooled the AI into thinking it was a new content. So it's got to get a lot better. And then lastly, I think that the progression is in video analysis, where video is analyzed frame by frame by frame, together with the sound, together with the semantic analysis. And this is really the future, which this will be able allow us to fully understand the harmful content, and it'll teach AI what harmful content looks like. But the problem with video analysis is it's slow, and it's too slow for that huge volume of content that I spoke to you about. I got this slide from one of the social networks who said this is how they're teaching their AI. What they want is they want to be in the bottom, your bottom right-hand corner where it says the goal. What they want is they want the minimum amount of human supervision and the maximum amount of AI understanding. So, for instance, on this chart, what they'll say is that for hate speech and for bullying, they still need a lot of human supervision to be able to identify that, because the AI hasn't been taught or can't understand yet where what bullying and hate speech looks like. But in areas like fake accounts or spam, the AI already understands what that looks like, and they don't need any human intervention there at all. Some of the 10,000 moderators that they've got. So what their goal is to move all of the areas like hate speech and bullying and violence down towards the bottom right-hand side of that chart. I thought it was a useful chart. So that's how AI, we're using AI both in contextual brand safety as well as in fake news and invalid traffic. I'll leave you with one chart which I thought you'd find very interesting. Is that, and this is sort of the center of our strategic thinking in brand safety with our client base, is whilst we've become very sophisticated helping our clients understand brand safety and avoid any missteps in brand safety, there's no such thing as zero risk. Of all the billions and billions and billions of impressions that we serve, it's almost certain that a few bad impressions will get through against some of the inappropriate content, or there'll be some level of invalid traffic. And so this is a continuum that we take and we show our clients and say, where on the continuum do you want your brand to be? If you're in the green side, for instance, then which is the very, very safest side, which is where your low risk tolerance is, you'll have the greatest degree of brand safety, but and quality and quality inventory as well. But at the same time, you may have to pay some more for your impressions. And the second thing is you may not have the same sort of reach of inventory as you were before. But if you're a CPA brand, if you're about paying on a cost per impression and you want to get low cost impressions and you're all about sales and you're prepared to be on the high risk side, are you able to live with brand safety missteps? Are you able to live with a level of invalid traffic? So that's a kind of an interesting way that we explain to our clients where to lie on the brand safety risk assessment and how A has helped us. Thank you.